All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION this morning. Now, France has called for European Union to impose financial and trade sanctions on two specific nations, Turkey and Pakistan. Now, the French member of the European Parliament, Jordan Bardella, has expressed concerns over what he describes as terrorism that is emanating from countries like Turkey and Pakistan. Now, the French leader has stressed that the bloc must impose sanctions in order to make the European solidarity tangible. Now, these are his words. Now, the call for sanctions comes as the rift between France and the Muslim world has widened in the aftermath of France insisting that the controversial cartoons of Prophet Muhammad will be published. France in the last 1 month has witnessed several incidents that have been described as terror attacks after Charlie Hebdo announced that it will be republishing the controversial caricatures of Prophet Muhammad, where Prophet Muhammad was depicted as wearing a turban that had a bomb in it. The French President Emmanuel Macron has come forth and said that he would defend French values and also the right of the magazine to publish the cartoons. The protests have erupted across the Muslim world over the incident, while France and other European nations have also been victims of brutal terror attacks. On the 16th of October, there was this incident where a terrorist had beheaded a secondary school teacher called Samuel Paty. Now, the 47-year-old teacher had reportedly shown these controversial cartoons of Prophet Muhammad in a class of young students to tell them about free speech. And also on the 30th of October, there was another terror attack that occurred when a terrorist had stabbed 3 people to death and had wounded several others inside a church in the city of Nice. And then on the 2nd of November, there was another terror attack that took place in Vienna, where a terrorist went on a rampage and shot dead 4 people and injured 20 others in the city centre before he was eventually nabbed by the police. The French member of the European Parliament, who goes by the name Jordan Bardella, has now asked the European Union, and I quote him here, "Is the EU planning to adopt any real financial or trade sanctions against countries such as Turkey, Pakistan, Kuwait and Qatar in order to reassert our common values and also make European solidarity tangible?" So he's calling for sanctions against Turkey, Pakistan, Kuwait and also Qatar. And he says that this is to be done to reassert the common values and to make European solidarity tangible. Meanwhile, there have been widespread protests in several Muslim nations against France. Social media users in many Muslim nations have joined calls to boycott all French goods for the manner in which it has gone about dealing the controversy over the publication of those controversial cartoons of Prophet Muhammad. All right, now to get us more updates and insights into what is actually playing out, we are joined by WION's Siddhant Sibil. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Good morning to you, Siddhant. This is an interesting call that has come in from the French representative in the European Union, where he has said that to show European solidarity and to make it more tangible, there should be sanctions against nations like Turkey, Pakistan, Kuwait and even Qatar. What more do we know about this?
Well, there is a growing recognition of how Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, and the fact that we have seen recent attacks in France, in Austria, shows that how there have been linkages as well with Pakistan. We know that there was an attack in France itself with linkages with Pakistan. There have been many attacks in UK with linkages in Pakistan. It's not the first time that the MEPs in European Parliament have voiced their concerns. Just a few weeks ago, there were MEPs who had written letters regarding Pakistan's connection with cross-border terrorism, and in fact, situation of minorities in Pakistan as well. In fact, just recently, over the killing of a Ahmadiyya person in Peshawar, the issue was raised in the British Parliament by an MP, and the British Prime Minister assured that this is a matter of concern and said that his government is talking with Pakistan regarding the issue of minorities. But talking about the issue of terrorism, the fact that this has been raised by a French MEP shows how there has been the recent rise of distrust when it comes to countries like Pakistan, like Turkey. We know that it was the Turkish president who led the bandwagon against the French President Macron, and of course we know that the Pakistani Prime Minister joined the bandwagon as well regarding the entire comments being made by the Turkish president. And of course India stood out as the first major Asian government to talk about support Macron as well. We saw the release by the Indian government as well. So by and large there is now a clear distinction between countries who are supporting France and countries who aren't supporting France, and France is in no mood to take on in terms of the countries who are making comments against France, whether it's Pakistan or Turkey.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, like you pointed out, it was the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He said that the French President Emmanuel Macron needs a bit of a mental check for what he had to say about this entire controversy on the Charlie Hebdo's controversial cartoons. Now, at this point of time, Siddhant, looking at the scenario within the European Union, how much support is France likely to get for these sanctions that have been called for the French representative for nations not just against Pakistan, but including nations like Turkey, which also is a member of the NATO, and Kuwait and even Qatar?
Well, as of now, I do not see sanctions against Pakistan by the European Parliament. The comments which have come from an MEP who is from a right-wing party in France. So we know that number of right-wing parties have publicly raised concerns regarding the issue of terrorism coming from countries like Pakistan. But by and large, if you look at the European policy, it is much more nuanced. In fact, recently there was a Foreign Office conversation between Islamabad and Brussels, in which the readout stated that the Brussels called on Pakistan to act more on the issue of financing of terrorism. So they are taking more diplomatic route as of now, taking more the routes of institutions such as FATF. We do expect the pressure on Pakistan to continue by European Union through institutions like FATF, where it is still grey listed. The next meeting takes place in February. We will get to know what happens there. Will Pakistan continue to be on the grey list, or will it be put on the blacklist? So such kind of measures is expected to be taken by Brussels rather than sanctions, because at the end of the day there are global geopolitical situations, including situation in Afghanistan. There are of course reports of American troops leaving Afghanistan very soon, in a few months. So that is something that will also play in the background. So by and large, we do not expect a strong sanction, but of course a nuanced action supported by of course New Delhi, because New Delhi has publicly raised this issue many times publicly, and we know the anniversary of 26/11 is also coming in few weeks. We do expect a reaction from Brussels as well, because number of European citizens also died in that terrible attack, and Pakistan still has to take action against the perpetrators who roam freely in Pakistan.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Siddhant, for joining us and getting us all those insights. Let's now shift our attention to what is happening in Thailand, where nearly about 55 people